It all begins in the middle of a chaotic storm full of endless lightning strikes. A heavily battered man in torn clothes is thrown into the... He tries to react by firing dozens of magic talismans at the threat below. However, the enemy is a gigantic demonic wolf, radiating a terrifying energy. With extreme ease, the beast destroys the attack, breaking everything in its own mouth. Finding the situation unbelievable, the injured man ends up letting out an ironic laugh. At that moment, he realizes his plan succeeded and wonders if the opponent is even human. Regret hits since he only needed one more year of pure effort. He could have finally reached the divine dragon form if he had more time. It was 999 years living as a spiritual creature for nothing. Outraged, the warrior notices they used items created solely to eliminate divine beasts. Unable to understand the reason for so much hate, he questions the motive behind all this persecution. Soon after, he calls the opponent a fool while continuing to fall without any strength left. Already fallen before the beast, he asks what the enemy gained from all this destruction. But a mysterious voice answers that it does not care about that and was only paying off a debt. Totally defeated, the MC accepts his end and wonders if it is all over now. A sinister red aura appears in the dark, wanting to know the name of that voice. But the wolf charges furiously, asking who the enemy was talking to. A colossal explosion of fire consumes the entire battlefield in an instant. In spirit form, the warrior laments his destiny of fading away so pointlessly. In the middle of the darkness, mysterious heartbeats begin to echo through space. Surprised by the sound, he wakes up in the void, wondering if he is still around. The spirit notices he lost his original energy, but still feels strength inside himself. Floating around disoriented, he realizes he is trapped inside some mysterious wall. Annoyed by the prison, he warns that he would never surrender just because he was sealed. Concentrating all his remaining energy, the MC decides to break that barrier. After an extreme effort, the shell cracks, and he can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Now in a tiny body, the former dragon realizes he is completely exhausted. Trying to understand the situation, he looks at the place, which seems to be a giant hall. The place is a massive vault packed with extraordinary items and shiny treasures. Walking on top of the gold, he gets curious about who owns that fortune. Right ahead, a peculiar stone catches his attention among several offerings. The inscription dedicates the place to a child who never got to see the light of the world. The text wishes happiness, revealing it to be a headstone made for a lost baby. Shocked by the discovery, he deduces that this place was an abandoned nursery. In a gesture of respect, he thinks about reciting a sacred mantra for the little one's soul. But upon touching his own face, he feels a soft and very weird texture. He looks at his paws, not understanding why his face is so round. He gets absolutely outraged when he notices his arms are now way too short. To make matters worse, he notices his belly is incredibly chubby. The MC starts panicking, trying to comprehend what happened to himself. Upon seeing his reflection in a coin, he gets a huge scare for being so tiny. Pulling his cheeks, he refuses to accept that he turned into that pathetic little... After his moment of freaking out, he concludes this must be the famous human reincarnation. Tired, he sits on the floor and decides to calm down since he does not understand anything about the situation. With that, he resolves to focus on what he can do and starts looking for useful things in the treasure hoard. Finding a sacred sword, he mocks the really messed up hobby of the place's former owner. Next, he finds a shield but thinks the petrification curse is super cliché. He kicks a flask that causes eternal hunger and finds that type of punishment very classic. Climbing on a chest, he finds a potion that trades your voice for legs and is not impressed. The animal finds it strange to have so many gloomy items in the middle of such a bright space. Walking through the coins, a small shiny gem ends up catching his eye. Looking up, he tries to figure out if the stone rolled off a higher shelf. Completely paralyzed, he can barely believe the absurdity right in front of him. A colossal mountain of luxurious riches shines intensely on top of the chest. Thrilled, the little guy celebrates, believing he just hit the jackpot. The gem is not just pretty, but it also holds a strong power worthy of a spiritual weapon. Holding the purple stone, he feels a dark energy identical to the one from his past life. Without a second thought, he jumps toward the item, determined to take it with him. However, he tries to pull the magic artifact and complains that the gold stand is getting in the way. Using his strength, the little guy gets excited when he feels the gem starting to get loose. He uses all the strength of his new round body to yank the object out of there. But he ends up slipping and complains a lot that the stone refuses to come out at all. Pushing a little harder with some grunts, the base of the structure finally starts to crack. With an unexpected jolt, the artifact comes loose and throws him straight backward in surprise. Tumbling through the air, he promises himself he will not let go of the prize no matter what. His chubby body rolls in a pitiful way down the entire mountain of coins. Massaging his head, he mutters that a little fall like this would not even tickle him back in the day. He is relieved to see the treasure is still safe and totally intact in his paws. Suddenly, blue lightning starts tearing through space, illuminating the whole vault room. Startled, the MC feels an overwhelming pressure taking over the environment. A spatial distortion appears, and he notices a very powerful being is arriving. Judging by the heavy energy, he admits that not even in his past life would he be able to beat this enemy. Even so, he refuses to back down, remembering his pride as a great divine dragon. With that, a massive and stormy portal opens, revealing the intruder's entrance. Intense lightning tears through space when the intruder's claws finally cross the portal. A huge blue eye appears in the middle of the light, staring at everything around. A colossal golden dragon steps onto the treasure, revealing an overwhelming presence in front of the little MC. The former divine dragon stands his ground, deducing the giant is trying to intimidate him with that scary aura. Totally focused, he grits his teeth, determined not to lose this power struggle at all. Summoning his demonic aura from the past, the little guy tries to let out a terrifying roar to fight back against the pressure. But the golden dragon just tilts its head, completely confused about what is going on. The great roar ends up coming out as a cute and pathetic sneeze, leaving the little one devastated by his own sound. Realizing he is just a harmless pup now, he falls on his back onto the mountain of coins. The giant beast approaches curiously, noticing the little guy is shivering with fear. Cowering in panic, the MC hears a gentle voice saying he does not need to be scared. A bright and warm light begins to surround the mysterious visitor's body. The huge dragon takes the form of a woman, who holds him in her lap and asks if that is more comfortable. She calmly introduces herself as Christina, leaving the little one wondering if that was really her name. Sitting among the coins, Christina checks if the pup is okay and if he has managed to eat anything yet. The little guy figures she is asking about hunger, remembering he used to go months without eating a thing in the past. Right then, his stomach growls super loud, making Christina let out a murmur of surprise. Embarrassed to his core by his own body, he runs away scared, not knowing how to stop the noise. The little guy sucks in his belly, indignant because the embarrassing sound just will not stop echoing. Watching the scene, the woman notices his puppy instincts are taking over his reasoning. She magically summons a baby bottle, while the MC tries to understand what the visitor is planning. Christina calmly shakes the bottle to mix the liquid inside. The cap of the bottle is removed with a soft pop. An irresistible aroma travels through the air and hits the little former dragon right on the nose. Drooling uncontrollably, he recognizes the sweet smell and is amazed to realize it is milk. Trying to keep a shred of dignity, the little guy swallows hard, fighting against the urge. But his tail starts wagging on its own while he wonders if he should accept the offer. He slowly sneaks closer, still hesitating if giving in to his instincts is worth it. Noticing his hesitation, Christina pulls the bottle back and mentions that it is okay if he does not want it. The pup instantly panics upon seeing she was actually taking the food away. Unable to hold back anymore, he takes a desperate leap and grabs the bottle with everything he has got. The pup chugs the milk all at once while Christina laughs, commenting that he was really starving. Swallowing fast, the MC tries to convince himself it is just some random drink. But tears start falling from his face when he discovers the flavor is absolutely incredible. The woman affectionately asks if it is tasty, and he admits the situation is way too humiliating. With the meal finished, Christina reaches out her hand and asks if the little guy wants to leave with her. The invitation is made softly, inviting him to leave that lonely place. She guarantees there is even better food out there and lots of fun things to try. Even without understanding every word, the little guy gets the core message that she wants to take him. Thinking it over, he concludes the woman does not seem like a threat, and that vault only has useless gold. Besides, the instincts of this fragile body are way too strong to survive out there. He grabs the magic gem he found earlier, swearing he is not taking the offer just because of the milk. Determined, the former dragon walks over to Christina and tightly holds onto the hem of her dress. The woman welcomes the little guy with affection and gently picks him up in her arms. Hugging him tight, she thanks him for being born, revealing she feared it might never happen. Confused by the affection, the MC wonders if she is really thanking him just for existing. Finding the situation a bit weird, he soon realizes he must be the child mentioned on the headstone. With that, he quickly deduces the original soul of this body must have faded away a long time ago. Trying to return the affection, the little one holds out the purple magic gem toward her. Christina takes the object smiling, asking if it is a gift or if he wants her to hold on to it. She rubs her face against the pup, who decides to cheer her up so he does not have a depressed guardian around. Enchanted, the woman wonders how such a cute little creature managed to be born and if he was trying to comfort her. Holding him securely, Christina walks out of the vault asking him to take good care of her. In his new protector's lap, the little guy feels deep gratitude for the new chance at life. Looking back at the abandoned nursery one last time, he wishes the original soul finds peace. Focused on the future, He swears to himself that this time he will not meet his end in a pathetic way like in the past. The former warrior's gaze sharpens, promising to use absolutely everything at his disposal to get stronger. Sometime later, the pup wakes up stretching comfortably surrounded by soft sheets. Blinking slowly to shake off the sleep, he lets out a long and lazy yawn. Totally rested, the little guy sits up in the huge bed, ready to start another day. 1 month has already passed since their encounter, and the pup decides it is time for his morning meditation. He remembers he found the new anatomy very weird at first, but ended up getting used to his young form. Concentrating, a pink light shines in his chest as he absorbs energy straight through his heart. At first, he thought this mana flow was wrong, but after seeing Christina use magic, he understood it was the norm around there. With the energy circulating perfectly, the little guy celebrates not having to focus on complex breathing techniques. Looking at the luxurious balcony, he acknowledges that place has the purest mana flow possible. Being in a newborn body without any impurities makes spiritual cultivation extremely satisfying. However, his expression drops when he admits there is one single detail annoying him deeply. A tiny light spirit with little wings flutters persistently right next to his face. The former dragon glares at the glowing little creature with disdain, calling the being a nosy watchdog. Annoyed, he wonders if that ball of light ever sleeps with how much it chases him around. Christina had summoned the guardian spirit precisely because she was worried about leaving him alone. He tries to take a few swings at the little fairy, grumbling that he cannot do any physical training with it around. Every time the MC tries to sneak out into the yard looking for space to train. The creature rushes to warn Christina, who shows up right away to pick him up, ruining his escape. The MC notices his internal energy keeps growing steadily anyway. Because of that, he thinks he has reached a good enough level to try putting his plan into action. Channeling his magic, the pup decides to use a teleportation spell to get out of there quickly. However, he realizes it is still too early to try that without dealing with that annoying watchdog first. Swatting at the irritating fairy, he concludes he needs to come up with a countermeasure as soon as possible. Furthermore, the little dragon complains he has a serious issue with his vocal structure. Frustrated, he realizes this will be quite hard to fix until his body really grows. The light spirit tries to mimic him in a cute way, making the former warrior want to disappear from embarrassment. Suddenly, the little guy feels a very familiar and powerful mana flow approaching the room. Recognizing Christina's energy, he sees her stepping through a portal asking if he has been a good boy. He runs toward her letting out an adorable little noise, excited because the food is finally here. The woman drops to her knees, totally smitten, thinking he came to welcome her, never guessing his focus was the milk. Suggesting a diet change, Christina shows a piece of meat that gets the little guy drooling instantly. But she quickly gives up because of his tiny teeth, while the pup nods to say he can handle it. Super proud of his praised intelligence, he remembers he holds the soul of a 1,000-year-old beast. With that, the MC feels his acting is paying off, since she does not suspect it. Christina picks him up thinking he wants a hug, but the little guy was just asking for the milk. Pressed against her face, he accepts the affection, knowing that gaining her trust is necessary. The caretaker looks at the little dragon with an expression full of affection and tenderness on her face. Laughing with joy, she states with absolute certainty that he is the absolute cutest pup in the whole world. Right after, Christina snaps out of it and mentions she ended up forgetting about mealtime. Handing over the bottle, she offers his favorite milk, leaving the former warrior very satisfied. Chugging the bottle eagerly, the pup admits this delicious treat is the only reason to play cute. While he feasts on his food, the MC stays quiet, just paying attention to his surroundings. The woman sits next to him like usual and starts blabbering about how her day went. The little guy reflects that he never liked listening to others talk, since he had no friends before. However, seeing his caretaker open her heart like this, without even knowing he understands everything, touches him. This quiet moment allows the woman to show a much more relaxed and genuine smile. Thanks to so much daily listening, he notices he can already understand every word in this world. In this calm atmosphere, she calls the little guy with a very soft and loving voice. Christina asks if he drank it all, while the little one stares at the empty bottle, thinking all this hospitality comes with a price. The caretaker leans in, eyes sparkling, asking him to do something really cute. Looking at the flask, the former dragon reflects on having lived for millennia in the past just to end up faking cuteness for a simple drop of milk. Totally frustrated with the situation, he gives in to his instincts and lets out an adorable little squeak against his own will. With that, the MC tries to convince himself it is only logical to return the favor after receiving something so good. The woman hugs him, dying of love over his cuteness, leaving the little guy relieved to see his acting worked perfectly. Getting his head rubbed, he decides he cannot just act however he wants with someone who is helping him so much. She pets the pup's head and genuinely hopes he has a wonderful life full of joy. Hearing such sincere words, the former warrior admits there is no way to ignore the pure affection he is receiving. Watching her gestures, it becomes clear to him that Christina is an incredibly kind and warm person. Since he never had affection before, the little guy does not know how to return all this kindness, while Christina lets him know she brought him something. Suddenly, a memory surfaces showing a white fox from the past asking if training was really that fun. The girl comments he seemed trapped living isolated in that place just because he wanted to ascend to the heavens. The warrior stays silent while his friend asks if he really feels happy, doing only what he desires. Annoyed by the lack of an answer, she calls him a fool, but the dragon just argues their paths are very different. He questions the reason for so much criticism, getting the reply that it is exactly why she thinks he is a complete blockhead. With a more serious look, the fox directly asks if her friend has ever managed to be happy in his life. Keeping a firm posture, he listens to the girl state he has no clue what it feels like to be genuinely loved. Focused on his goal, the warrior replies those things are useless, and he has no room in his heart for trivial feelings. Next, he accuses her of being too attached to nonsense, reminding her she is also about to become a celestial fox. Catching her friend totally off guard, the girl directly reveals she made the decision to turn into a human. Faced with his shock, she lets out a laugh admitting this choice makes no sense for someone seeking power. With a passionate look, the fox confesses she fell in love with someone who accepts her even knowing her true nature. Walking slowly, she explains it is absolutely natural to want to return the feelings of someone who loves her so much. Already walking away, the girl sincerely hopes the day comes when the warrior can also understand that feeling. Even with her mocking him and calling him blind to romance, the dragon guarantees such a thing would never happen to him. He warns that if she becomes human she can never visit that place again, but decides not to ruin his friend's happiness. Giving a sincere smile, the MC roots for her to live well and receive all the love she so desires in the mortal world. The fox turns around completely embarrassed and surprised to see her friend making such a soft and unusual expression. Returning to his cold posture, he tells the girl to stop mumbling and speak properly, while she complains he should have been rude like always. Without losing her attitude, his friend yells for him to live a good life and calls him a fool one last time. The girl runs off calling her friend a blockhead dragon, ignoring the rare effort he made to say something nice. Before vanishing completely, she gives a bright smile and truly thanks him for everything they went through together. Back in the present, the pup finally understands the meaning of returning affection, even without perfectly understanding Christina's language. The woman returns to the living room and calmly asks if the little guy waited patiently for her all this time. Surprised, she stops talking when she sees the former warrior struggling to stand up, putting his way of saying thanks into practice. The caretaker goes into shock and celebrates the little guy's first steps, as he decided to return the kindness by showing his growth. Celebrating the plan's success, the MC hopes this proof of evolution will finally make the woman send that watchdog spirit away. But the joy is short-lived when he notices his owner shaking with emotion and does not get why she is crying. Without any warning, Christina lunges right at the pup with a crushing and desperate hug. Clinging to the little guy, she cries enchanted by so much cuteness, making the former dragon accept his plan to gain freedom failed miserably. Wiping away her tears, the woman sets him on the floor and mentions she almost forgot to give him a very special present. While she digs in her bag, the little guy gets super excited thinking he is finally getting some real food. The caretaker mentions it is something perfect to eat even without having all his teeth, leaving the pup very curious about what it could be. With a huge smile, she reveals a bowl containing a cooked phoenix, leaving the ancient dragon absolutely paralyzed by the absurd meal. The caretaker calmly lets him know that the thing inside the bag is a phoenix egg. Soon, the shell starts glowing with a warm light from the inside out. The former dragon remembers this is the immortal bird of passing and rebirth, very similar to the vermilion bird. But he is suspicious of the story, since that divine being did not hatch from an egg in his past life. Curious, the little guy walks all excitedly toward the mystery snack. With that, he shoves his little paws into the leather bag to grab the meal. The MC pulls the glowing food out, feeling the weight of that delicacy. Watching the scene, Christina almost melts with love, finding his attitude adorable. Wasting no time, the pup bites the top of the shell, celebrating his first bite. The texture is super soft, which makes it a lot easier to chew and swallow. Chewing quickly, he is amazed by the incredibly delicious flavor of the thing. The woman comments in relief that she roasted the food with red dragon flames and was worried he might not like it. While devouring it all, the little one notes the flavor is great, and he even feels a slight magical fire energy in it. Seeing his desperation, Christina hands him the bottle asking him to drink a little while he eats. The MC chugs the milk, while she warns him to slow down so he does not feel sick. Swallowing the last piece, he concludes the soft texture makes it go down very easily. Right after, he reaches his paw out to grab the next one. However, the pup notices this one is strangely red and way harder than the others. Since there are still plenty left, he decides to save this different one to eat later. With a stuffed belly, the little guy lies on the floor totally satisfied. Christina pets him, surprised by his appetite, and says she will go get more. She asks the little one to rest peacefully while she takes care of it. Left alone, he yawns, complaining he overdid it and it will take a while to digest. The food coma hits hard and sleep starts taking over the former warrior. Totally knocked out, the MC takes a heavy nap inside his basket. Suddenly, the pup's ear twitches, indicating he is waking up. The little guy snaps his eyes open, already regaining his consciousness. He stretches and gets up from the makeshift bed, still kind of groggy. Confused, he tries to figure out if he ended up sleeping too much without realizing it. Looking around, he notices the room is empty, but something weird catches his eye. The basket is full again, making him deduce Christina brought more while he was asleep. With his stomach empty again, the little guy licks his lips, thinking about eating just one more. He flaps his little wings, arguing with himself that one extra piece will not hurt. Flying over to the snack, he swears it is not gluttony, but a way to absorb fire magic. The pup lands with both paws right on top of one of the smooth shells. However, he stares at the surface and notices a familiar detail. It becomes clear this is exactly that same red and hard food from before. Summoning his sinister aura, the former dragon declares he already expected to face this opponent sooner or later. The demonic energy gathers in his paw, creating an intense purple light. His whole chubby body is taken over by this dark power from his past life. Magic flows violently around him, bracing for impact. With a merciless double strike, the MC hits the target with everything he has got. But the glow fades and the shell remains absolutely intact and gleaming. The little guy is thrown backward, outraged for not leaving even a single scratch. He hits the floor, sliding on his paws so he does not lose his balance. Annoyed by its durability, he admits the situation will be a little more complicated. Gathering more power, he warns he did not want to go so hard just over some food. The pup jumps and decides to pour absolutely all his life force into this attack. A giant dragon aura appears behind him as he fires a massive blast of magic. The beam of purple energy hits the red shell, causing an explosion of light. Panting, he lands on the floor and tries to see through the smoke if he managed to break it. Seeing the loose pieces, the little guy celebrates proudly, claiming he is the strongest. Then he steps up, determined to take a big bite and see if the effort was worth it. But the little one freezes in his tracks when he hears a very weird noise. Curious, he peeks over the remains of the shell, trying to figure out what that is. The former warrior is completely shocked to hear a soft chirp coming from inside. From the rubble, a tiny and fluffy white bird pops up, staring right at him. Completely bewildered by the situation, the MC tries to process what he is seeing. The little creature tilts its head and lets out another adorable chirp. Panicking, the pup has a meltdown, trying to understand how something raw was so hot earlier. On top of that, the energy the pup feels coming from this little creature is very familiar. The former dragon's eyes widen as he finally solves the riddle of what happened. The little bird gives off an aura that mixes fire with the exact same purple magic from his attack. He concludes the strike was not blocked. The shell just absorbed the magic as food. Furious, the little guy lies on the floor, whining that all his effort was stolen. The newborn hops over to him, and he complains about the time wasted building up that power. The little ball of feathers makes some high-pitched noises, and the MC questions this language. Totally defeated, the former warrior collapses on the rug while the bird curls up in his tail. Seeing the animal rub against him affectionately, he thinks it is very weird for a phoenix to be so friendly. But soon he realizes a crucial detail about the nature of this type of divine animal. The concept of imprinting crosses his mind, where babies adopt the first thing they see as their mom. He remembers a flying divine beast with similar habits, but decides to test the theory. The little one starts speed-walking across the room, and the bird follows him without any trouble. Desperate, he runs in circles trying to escape, but the creature sticks to his every step like glue. Exhausted and sweating bullets, the MC accepts his tragic fate as he confirms he became a phoenix mom. Dragging his wings, the MC complains he burned a lot of energy and announces he is going to rest up there. Once on the bed, he looks down, wondering if the little furball cannot fly up there yet. Satisfied, the little dragon lies down comfortably and decides to just ignore the little creature since he is exhausted. With heavy eyelids, the pup mentally celebrates, noticing the chirps are fading away little by little. But suddenly, he feels a strange weight on the edge and realizes the problem was not solved. Taking a closer look, the former warrior panics upon seeing the little bird crying so dramatically. Boiling with anger, he growls, asking if the stupid bird has any idea of the damage it caused. Meanwhile, Christina walks the halls, regretting having come back home so much later than expected. Holding a basket full of normal eggs, the woman gets super worried, thinking the baby must be starving. She quickly opens the bedroom door slowly, calling for the little one with her usual soft voice. However, the caretaker stops in her tracks, surprised to notice the shell remains scattered across the floor. She quickly figures the hungry little guy ended up devouring the whole stash while waiting and fell asleep. But a different detail catches her eye in the middle of the bed. The phoenix and the little dragon are fast asleep curled up together, in a totally adorable scene. Completely stunned by the sight, the woman murmurs, trying to confirm if that is really what she thinks it is. The newborn slowly blinks its little eyes, waking up to her presence. Still open-mouthed, the caretaker lets out a hesitant call to the little white creature. She takes a deep breath, barely able to believe the absurdity that showed up in the room. The woman remembers the chaotic mix of the egg's pure fire magic with the dark power emitted by the pup. Furthermore, she concludes a normal being would never survive so much chaotic energy being just a newborn. The sacred bird of flames is a divine entity that travels the garden of the gods caring for the world. Seeing such a majestic creature protecting the last divine dragon feels like a true twist of fate. Trying to approach, Christina pulls her hand back, warning that it is tricky dealing with a being that rejects contact. The little ball of feathers puffs its chest, letting out a warning chirp, clearly defending its territory. Waking up annoyed, the MC crosses his arms and tells the bird to chill because that woman is their savior. Watching the interaction, the caretaker finds it cute and tries to understand why a bird hatched from a roasted egg. Since there is only one guardian phoenix per generation, she hypothesizes that this might be the new representative of the era. However, the logic does not add up, since the normal cycle requires at least 100 years after the passing of her predecessor. Staring at the little confused dragon, she states that the current generation's phoenix should still be alive and well. With a heavy heart, the woman wonders if some serious anomaly occurred in the world to trigger this. Knowing she cannot ignore the situation, she snaps her fingers, quickly summoning the guardian's spirit Rai. The caretaker decides she needs to find the elder of the red dragons to discuss this new phoenix. Handing the fairy over to the pup's paws, she asks them to trust the glowing creature while she is away. The MC agrees right away with a little squeak, seeing the perfect chance to be left without supervision. As soon as the owner turns her back, the former warrior throws his little arms up, celebrating his long-awaited freedom. He does a happy little dance along with the bird, but freezes when he hears the woman confess her worry for them. Christina notes that the little dragon is not just smart, but carries a very mature set of values. Recalling his training, she observes that newborns usually use magic in a wild and uncontrolled way. But that baby is different, manipulating spiritual energy with an absurd precision and complexity. She admits he crosses the genius barrier, until a male voice suddenly pulls her from her thoughts. A subordinate bows in the hall, and she immediately asks if the man did anything to the pup before handing him over. Without waiting for an answer, the woman guarantees she does not care about the true nature of that little creature. Totally beaming, she wholeheartedly accepts the role of guardian and promises to return soon to her protege. Back in the room, the MC relaxes on the bed, thinking about the Red Elder's son's reputation. He remembers the rumors about the kid being a talented genius and very dedicated to magical studies. The former dragon guesses this prodigy child might be pretty useful for his own growth in the future. With that, he imagines the two might end up developing a good friendship if their interests align. At the door, the caretaker instructs the fairy to let her know immediately if anything goes wrong while she is away. She crouches down, asking the baby to stick real close to the light spirit just to be safe. The little dragon crosses his arms, totally impatient, wondering why she still has not left yet. Unable to resist the cuteness, the woman gives his chubby cheek an affectionate squeeze, which he responds to with confusion. She pulls him into a tight hug, rubbing her face against the pup with lots of love and affection. Totally suffocated, the former warrior thrashes around, grumbling, while she gives a little laugh, promising to be back soon. Finally, the caretaker turns her back and steps through the portal, leaving the room in absolute silence. With his ears perked up, the little guy listens for the click of the door and checks if the coast is really clear. He peeks into the deserted garden, making sure the woman has finally vanished from sight. He celebrated with excitement that his moment of glory had arrived after so much stalling. The little guy takes a huge jump on the bed, yelling with joy for the sweet and wonderful freedom he earned. Full of attitude, he warns he is no ordinary baby to sit around rotting in a crib all day. Walking confidently, the MC complains the rules there prevented any kind of decent training. Ignoring the light spirit bouncing around, he decides he's going to thoroughly explore the nursery. The newborn phoenix runs right behind, chirping non-stop like a literal shadow glued to him. Annoyed by the escort, the former warrior turns his face, telling the bird to stop staring at him with that pitiful look. Giving no room for crying, the pup takes a quick and agile leap, leaving the crew behind on the rug. However, the immortal bird is faster and lands gracefully right on top of the little dragon's head. Sighing deeply, he agrees to give it a ride so the animal will not keep tripping and getting in the way. With the lazy passenger and the little fairy guiding the route, the trio heads down the palace's golden halls. Just ahead, the MC stops in front of a colossal door and calculates if he can reach the doorknob with a jump. Waving his tail to build momentum, the little guy flexes his legs, determined to try his luck no matter what. In an explosive move, the former dragon launches off the floor, cutting through the air straight for the shiny target. Grabbing the metal with both paws, he celebrates the successful acrobatics, feeling like a boss. But the joy dies quickly when the doorknob refuses to budge, confirming his suspicion that it was locked. Hitting the floor, he stares at the light spirit, understanding why the creature is so chill all the time. Keeping his cool, the MC summons his demonic aura, warning he is no normal baby to be stopped like this. The purple energy seeps into the keyhole, forcing the mechanism, until a loud click announces the door is unlocked. The colossal door gives way with a creak, and the little dragon celebrates, hanging from the doorknob. Falling to the floor clumsily, he focuses on what the light spirit is going to do now. The former warrior watches the glowing creature, wondering if it is going to snitch to Christina about the escape. But the fairy just floats calmly, leaving the little guy confused by the lack of panic. Seeing the light flicker softly, the MC deduces in shock that the watchdog is giving him permission. Scratching his head, not understanding this sudden help, he decides to just take the advantage. With the path clear, the pup steps confidently into the hall, announcing it is time for action. Looking at the immensity of the place, he lets out a sigh, focused on his goal. Walking through the giant hall, the little one admits the space is much bigger than he imagined. Sitting on the floor, he concludes it makes sense now why Christina is so overprotective of him. The MC notices walking through that massive castle in a tiny body like this has a very clear limit. Taking short steps and feeling annoyed, he complains he will not be able to explore much at all like this. With that, he gives a confident smirk, revealing he was already prepared for this problem. The little guy remembers he spent a good chunk of time watching the purple magic flow through the room. He focused really hard on Christina's energy flow and memorized exactly how the spell works. Channeling his power, the former dragon feels the ambient mana respond as if it were his own body. The little one announces he can execute the plan and tries to decide which direction to go. Glaring at the fairy out of the corner of his eye, he mocks that it is no use trying to warn his owner anymore. With energy wrapping his paws, the pup warns that it is now too late to be stopped. A giant magic matrix appears on the floor, activating the teleportation at full force. The spell tears through space and throws the MC right into the open sky in a flash of light. Staring at the landscape, the former warrior is amazed to see the outside world for the very first time. He quickly realizes that place is completely different from the world of his past life. However, gravity acts fast and the little guy starts plummeting face first toward the ground. The phoenix tries to catch the MC, flapping its little wings, and he appreciates the bird's useless effort. The two crash down hard, kicking up a cloud of dust and dirt across the garden. Lying on his stomach, the pup grumbles he was too low to open his own wings. The light spirit flies around them desperately, leaving the little dragon clueless about the panic. Sitting on the ground next to the bird, he remembers how Christina made magic look so easy. With that, it hits him, and he starts thinking about the absurd complexity of the spell he just used. The MC understands a powerful mage would never just leave a weak watchdog looking after him for nothing. Looking around the garden, the pup has a crisis, wondering if there is any way to fix the mess he made. He tries to calm down, wondering if casting such an advanced spell as a newborn is really that crazy. The former warrior goes into shock, realizing no normal baby could ever pull off teleportation. Watching the light spirit freaking out, the whole picture starts getting much clearer. Trying to keep his cool, the little guy mutters, hoping the situation is still under control. The little one takes a step back slowly while the guilt hits hard. Frustrated, he concludes there is no use crying over it since he already used a spell impossible to hide. Accepting his mistake, the pup decides stressing over it now will not fix his problem. With that, he pets the phoenix's head, trying to pass some calm to the scared bird. The little dragon puffs out his chest and decides to just focus on figuring out where he ended up. Walking through the brush, he and the bird start watching the little bugs on the ground. Further ahead, the duo stops by a crystal-clear stream to peek at the fish swimming peacefully. Enjoying his freedom, the pup crosses a fallen log, exploring the nature around the place. Fascinated by the environment, the former dragon observes the gigantic trees blocking out all the sun. Jumping through the leaves, the little guy pushes through thick brush to get a better view of the area. With the phoenix right behind him, he reaches the top, looking over the vast landscape, trying to find his bearings. Hiding in the branches, the former warrior locks eyes on a very specific and familiar spot. The massive magic barrier glows in the distance, showing exactly where his caretaker's castle is. The MC is impressed seeing the sheer scale of that palace from the outside. He notices the ambient mana is so dense it perfectly merged with the earth around the barrier. Satisfied with the exploration, the little guy turns around announcing he has seen everything he needed to see. Grabbing onto the leaves, the pup starts climbing down fast, determined to get back home right away. Looking at the calm light spirit, he concludes the accident was not all bad since it kept him sharp. Stepping firmly on the grass, the little guy starts plotting a plan to turn the game in his favor. Walking confidently, he plans to show off his magic talent, proving he is a very well-behaved genius. The former dragon pictures Christina rubbing his belly and praising him for his flawless obedience. With the bird on his head, he grumbles he just needs to be careful not to act too human and raise suspicion. The little one stops dead in his tracks, focused on making everything work out without causing a scene. But suddenly, he sniffs the air, picking up a very peculiar scent coming from nearby. The pup spins around, quickly searching for the source of that irresistible smell. With eyes sparkling with excitement, the little guy charges ahead, thrilled to recognize the plant's energy. Hidden in the brush, a little red fruit shines, catching the hungry explorer's attention. The former warrior is amazed to find a celestial seed growing wild right there in the garden. Staring at the rare herb, he admits the pure magic of that item is on a completely insane level. Drooling with desire, the MC instantly figures it would be perfect to get his power back. Without a second thought, he reaches out his little paw, decided to devour the forest's sacred treasure. But the light spirit jumps in front, blocking the prize, leaving the little guy totally outraged. The fairy grabs the seed, tightly pulling the food away from the angry baby's reach. Wagging his tail in rage, the former dragon calls the glowing creature out for being so nosy. The pup tries to jump and grab the plant, complaining that this harassment has gone way too far. Watching the conflict, the phoenix takes a very serious stance, ready to defend its partner. The bird launches a violent tackle at the fairy, while the dragon cheers the perfect strike. Seizing the distraction, the little guy grabs the stem of the magic herb, declaring absolute victory. Chewing with difficulty, the little one complains about the size of the root, but swears to swallow it all to absorb the magic. Chewing the plant eagerly, the MC trusts everything is under control since the food is in his mouth. Right then, the weird root breaks free from the main stem with a sudden jerk. The piece of weed comes to life and takes off, running across the ground like a scared bug. Completely shocked, the little guy hears the plant let out a high-pitched scream as it runs away. But all of a sudden, a crushing wave of nausea hits the former warrior out of nowhere. Unable to hold it back, the pup ends up throwing everything up in a sudden coughing fit. Falling face first into the dirt, he groans in pain while the divine bird goes into total panic mode. Frustrated, the MC realizes that was not the celestial seed he thought it was, and feels his consciousness fading. Passed out on the grass, the little guy leaves the light spirit, desperate for leading them there. Immediately, a green magic energy begins to swirl around the pup's body. Following the trail of this power, a mysterious figure steps firmly onto the forest floor. The unknown spell acts fast and creates a kind of soft wind bed to protect the baby. Noticing the strange movement, the phoenix quickly turns to check who just arrived. A stranger wearing a green cloak holds out a hand, controlling all the wind magic through the garden. With precise movements, the unknown guy focuses his energy on the pup, while the sacred bird watches closely. The newcomer adjusts his own cloak calmly, making sure the situation is handled. With a gentle gesture, the young man tosses a glowing little pill floating through the magic medicine drops straight into the MC's mouth as he stays out cold on the floor. Without chewing, the former dragon instinctively swallows the pill instantly. Right after, the healing energy spreads through his entire chubby little body, purging the bad stuff. Feeling the sudden improvement, the little guy opens his eyes, confused, trying to understand what that feeling is. Still a little dizzy, he sees the savior's silhouette walking away and wonders who it could be. However, the former warrior admits he has not fully recovered his strength yet, and his consciousness starts failing again. Beaten by exhaustion, the pup goes right back to deep sleep, lying on the soft grass. Meanwhile, the phoenix and the light spirit hop around, relieved, thinking the danger is gone. The bird cuddles up to its partner, whining, while the MC mentally asks it to chill because he just wants to rest. Far from there, Christina walks down the castle's golden halls with firm steps. Exuding elegance, the woman greets her visitor, kindly saying it has been a long time since they saw each other. Across the room, a colossal red dragon wrapped in intense flames begins taking a human shape. With a booming voice, the beast agrees time flew by and calls the host by her leadership title. Now transformed, the man comments on the surprise visit he decided to pay to the leader of the Golden Dragons. Keeping her cool, the caretaker figures the guest already knows exactly whether the proposal will be accepted or not. With a snap of his fingers, the red-haired visitor makes himself at home, demanding the topic of discussion better be worth it. Playing the diplomat, the woman apologizes for the lack of manners, but the man brushes off the formalities, wanting to cut straight to the chase. Staring at his host seriously, he reveals he knows a black dragon pup was just born. Surprised the info leaked, Christina admits she had not reported the event to the Grand Lord yet. Tired of beating around the bush, the redhead sits back down and asks why she came to him first. Clasping her hands over her chest, the caretaker explains with deep concern that the baby is still way too fragile. She argues the little one needs a peaceful environment to grow and gain life experience. Furthermore, she argues the former warrior should have the freedom to develop his own personality at his own pace. Because of this, the woman asks the ally to protect the pup and stop the powerful lord from interfering in this growth. Weighing the gravity of the request, the man asks if the child is really worth all this risky effort. To prove the baby's worth, she reveals the little dragon pulled off the feat of reviving a new phoenix. The visitor goes into shock, remembering the divine bird of this generation should still be alive in the world. Clenching his fists, he concludes that if the Lord finds out, he will brainwash the boy without a second thought. The redhead adds that any sign of a threat would make the Lord try to eliminate the child instantly, without mercy. Changing his tone, he praises the host's smarts and claims she already knew this was an offer he could not refuse. Relieved by his answer, Christina replies she just trusted her ally's wisdom and common sense. The visitor agrees, planning to build strong ties between the heir of darkness and his own son. Bowing respectfully, the woman expresses deep gratitude for the promise of help in raising the babe. Satisfied with the sealed deal, the man says his goodbyes and announces he is heading out after a great chat. Looking out the window, the caretaker chuckles to herself, picturing the arrogant lord's frustrated face in the future. She reflects that those in power will have to accept that not everything in this world goes exactly according to their plans. But the woman's gaze sharpens as she remembers her ally himself will also run into surprises along the way. Enjoying the calm vibe, she thinks about that man's only heir and the destiny waiting for them. Folding her magic wings, the caretaker deduces this alliance will be extremely beneficial for both boys. With her duty done, the host walks briskly, determined to get back to her beloved protege quickly. All smitten, she worries if the hungry little guy is already crying for food and decides to grab him a snack. But suddenly, the woman freezes dead in her tracks in the middle of the hall, feeling a terrible chill. Putting her hand to her head, she picks up a desperate signal from the light spirit and instantly panics. Spooked by the alert, Christina unleashes her entire magic aura all at once, knowing it is an emergency. Without wasting a single second, she pushes off the palace floor with maximum force. Wrapped in streaks of pure blue energy, the caretaker tears through space, teleporting straight into the garden. Landing heavily in the thick brush, she screams for the little ones with her heart practically jumping out of her chest. Looking ahead, the woman spots the divine bird nested on top of the baby, who is resting peacefully. Calming down a bit, she picks the pup up, totally confused about how the two ended up so far from the bedroom. The light spirit shakes with fear and frantically points at the chewed-up red root tossed in the grass. Eyes wide, the protector goes into shock upon realizing the starving baby devoured a mandrake. She remembers that herb is already dangerous by nature, and in that garden, it ends up saturated with lethal dragon magic. Mind blown, the woman can barely believe a newborn managed to uproot and eat an ancient plant all by himself. Catching her breath, the caretaker smells the healing wind magic and quickly pieces together what happened there. She figures a young prodigy passed by and saved the boy, lamenting that the baby's secret got exposed. Letting out a long sigh, the host decides to look at it as a blessing since the unknown spell prevented a tragedy. Hugging the little guy tight, she takes the blame for underestimating her clever protege's escape skills. Laughing nervously, the woman concludes that raising a genius who teleports away to eat lethal weeds is going to be tough. The MC opens his eyes, slowly recognizing that familiar voice. With that, he assumes the woman must be furious about the escape. Startled, the little dragon spins around, quickly calling for Christina to confirm she is really there. The caretaker pulls him into a tight hug, crying a lot. She apologizes, stating she should have been way more attentive. Getting squished in the middle of the crying, the former warrior accepts the scare as natural. He soon realizes how much the woman truly cares. The pup listens to her racing heartbeat and feels guilty for acting on his own so recklessly. Totally in tears, the host takes a deep breath, trying to calm herself down after the sheer terror of almost losing the baby. More collected, the woman suggests they head back home right away, since his little body took heavy damage from the lethal plant. Already back in the cozy room, the little guy rests while the healing magic energy gently circulates around his body. He reflects on the internal injuries caused by that mana mess. Even so, he celebrates the fact that he is still alive. The former dragon admits that no matter how familiar the look or smell was, he finally gets it through his head that he is in a different world. With that, he swears to be a lot more careful from now on. He sighs, relieved that his training paid off to keep him surviving. Putting the deep thoughts aside for later, the little one focuses on the purple power in his paws, determined to absorb all the energy that went into him. Right next to the baby, the newborn phoenix sleeps deeply sprawled out amidst the soft blankets. The MC turns his head, confused, wondering what the bird is doing there so relaxed after everything. Waking up lazily, the white bird stretches adorably, letting out a soft chirp to its partner. Trembling with frustration, the former warrior remembers the animal would not stop crying in the forest, and now acts like everything is totally fine. Right then, the owner pets the animal's little head, asking it not to cry anymore, since it was just a temporary stomachache. The woman comforts the bird wholeheartedly. Watching the scene, the pup asks himself if there is really someone who cares that much about him. The little guy concludes that in his past life he would never notice something so precious, but now admits that being cared for is not a bad feeling. Suddenly, a very familiar glow catches his attention, cutting his thoughts off abruptly. The little furball, chirping excitedly, ends up spitting a tiny sphere of light right at its partner. Without hesitation, the little dragon swallows the mysterious light, feeling the energy slide quickly down his throat. Immediately, a pure magic of purification radiates through his chubby body, lighting up the entire room. Surprised by the instant relief, the MC can barely believe the good feeling taking over him. The former warrior's eyes go wide, realizing that is the true purification energy working inside him. Feeling way better, the pup lets out a tiny burp, expelling any leftover bad energy still lingering there. He mentally celebrates, confirming his theory about the divine nature of his partner was completely spot on. The MC feels the water element curing the poison and merging perfectly with the fire energy in his own core. Staring at the little white animal, he concludes the divine bird is full of handy surprises for his growth. Totally sold on his companion's usefulness, the pup pets the animal's head, thanking it for the miracle help. The caretaker opens the bedroom door, asking softly if the baby managed to rest well after such a huge scare. The little guy answers with an adorable squeak. She notices he looks great, but states the whole situation was terrifying. Picking the pup up, the woman explains the plant made him so sick just because he is a fragile newborn. The host guarantees that when he grows a bit more, crazy things like the mandrake will not hurt his body at all. However, Christina's look gets incredibly dark as she digs into the silent details of the incident. She privately admits she found it hard to believe the fairy's report about the baby using teleportation so early. Furthermore, the woman highlights the absurd recovery of his internal injuries, even factoring in the massive help from the healing magic. The caretaker concludes the child is way too exceptional to grow up unchecked. If the Grand Lord finds out, the consequences will be cruel. Feeling the mood get heavy in the room, the MC stares at his guardian, completely silently trying to figure out what happened. He finds the woman's super serious expression weird and wonders what is going through the caretaker's head right now. The pup suspects the host is already catching on to his unusual intelligence. He thinks about using the phoenix as an excuse if he gets called out. Breaking the tension, Christina holds the newborn's little paws, calling him with a voice loaded with deep affection. Squeezing his chubby little fingers tight, the woman reveals she made an essential decision regarding his future. Wrapped in an impressive aura, the guardian firmly announces she is going to cast the magic of inheritance directly onto the child. The former warrior tilts his head to the side, completely confused, having no idea what kind of ancient spell that is. The magic of inheritance is a powerful ancient spell passed down by the gods to the smartest beings in the entire world. It is a concept that implants a dragon's knowledge, allowing the receiver to even gain new skills. The power awakened depends on the mind of the one receiving it. However, this magic puts a painful burden on a newborn. The scariest part is that the caster's twisted ideologies can also be passed down along with all the knowledge. Explaining the gravity of the situation, Christina warns the conditions are so strict that few dare to perform the transfer. The ritual can only be done a single time in life permanently. With a tender look, the caretaker asks if he trusts her. The woman warns bluntly that the process is as painful as it is powerful, demanding a lot of strength to endure. The little guy pays attention, while the host warns he will need to put absolutely all his hopes in her hands. In a tone almost like a quiet confession, she admits she honestly wishes the scenario was very different. Giving a restrained smile, Christina reveals her greatest wish was to let the pup have a normal childhood without any trauma. The little dragon wags his tail, listening closely to the guardian's lament about skipping the phases of youth. She sighs, claiming there are precious things that can only be enjoyed when you are truly young. The former warrior stays quiet, absorbing the weight of the host's words and the caring intention behind them. The MC understands this warm consideration perfectly, because in his past life reality also hit extremely hard. He vaguely recalls that life usually ends up being way crueler than anyone expects, stealing your innocence too fast. Cute and pure childhood memories always end up totally crushed by the cruel priorities the world demands. When time passes and someone realizes how beautiful those days were, the vase of memories is already shattered for good. It becomes impossible to recover the abandoned void. The effort to pick up the pieces usually comes too late and only causes pain. Understanding Christina chose to rush his growth out of pure protection, the pup decides he can handle the burden. A few days after this major decision, firm and determined footsteps echo through the grand, well-lit hall. In the center of the vast space, the woman waits for her little protege in the middle of a gigantic golden magic circle. The caretaker's steps push forward elegantly, confirming absolutely everything is properly set up for the ceremony. The pup shivers involuntarily, feeling the insane pressure radiating from the site of the ancient ritual. Even from a distance, the little guy fights against the strong winds of mana to manage to reach the woman at the center of the power. Picking the newborn up safely, Christina softly asks him not to be too nervous right now. The guardian takes a really deep breath, focusing all her vast spiritual energy into her body in one single intense breath. Calling upon her own supreme name, she invokes the authority of Christina El Arcadia, lighting up the entire castle. The MC's eyes go wide in shock as the host declares she is handing over all her life and memories to him. The woman reaches out her hand, radiating blinding magic, ready to transfer her vital essence straight into the child's mind. The little dragon accepts his destiny and his left eye glows intensely, fusing the grand power of 2 lives forever. The MC braces for impact, mentally noting that the moment has arrived. The ancient magic starts wrapping around his tiny body. Taking the absurd load, he lets out a desperate scream of pain. The power penetrates deeply, reflecting the golden symbols right in his eyes. It feels like an archive of information is being forcefully dumped into his mind. He feels his nerves violently expanding to process it all. Even with hellish pain, the former warrior swears to hold on tight until the very end. He focuses on the certainty that all the knowledge will be his if he just endures a little longer. Determined to win, the pup demands the spell hand over absolutely everything it has got. His little body glows, pulling the maximum load of energy all at once. With the ritual over, the little guy staggers exhausted across the hall with no strength left. The caretaker struggles to ask if the baby is feeling okay. But the little one ends up losing consciousness and collapses straight onto the floor face first. Desperate, the host runs toward him, screaming frantically for her protege. The woman hugs the limp pup, begging him to wake up soon. Clinging to the child, she asks full of distress if he managed to bear the burden. Coughing from weakness, the guardian keeps calling for the boy with tears streaming down her face. The fear of having hurt the baby takes over her heart. Right then, the former dragon blinks slowly, touching the savior's hand with his little paw. To the total shock of the woman, he manages to pronounce her name clearly. Clinging to the little one, Christina cries desperately, asking if he's okay and begging him to wake up. Right then, she hears a faint cough and calls out to the hatchling, totally blown away by his reaction. The newborn uses the little bit of strength he has left to hug his caretaker's arm. With a lot of effort, the MC finally manages to say her name out loud. The woman beams with pure joy, celebrating that the baby actually handled the ritual. Relieved, she hugs the former warrior tightly, thanking him for holding up so well. Exhausted, the hatchling admits he thought he was going to kick the bucket, and that the stress alone would have given him gray hair. The guardian pets him, promising a special meal to help him recover, which gets him super hyped. Walking around with the baby in her arms, she insists the dish is the absolute perfect thing after such a rough ordeal. The little guy gets incredibly eager for the food, while Christina finally reveals the special treat. But the MC is absolutely stunned to see that the meal is some gross potion made of medicinal herbs. Faced with that mysterious slop, the tiny dragon sits in dead silence, trying to process his utter disappointment. Frustrated, he pushes the plate away, demanding milk and eggs, but the host shuts that down, warning it would mess up the medicine's effects. Then she pulls out a shiny candy apple and promises to give him the sweet treat if he finishes every last drop. The former dragon sighs and accepts the challenge, figuring she was trying her best and he wasn't exactly a real kid anyway. Holding the ugly root, the hatchling reassures himself that this will be a piece of cake after swallowing that mandrake. Wasting zero time, he takes a massive bite out of the remedy, just trying to get it over with. But the ex-warrior's eyes pop out of his head the split second that awful plant flavor hits his taste buds. The little guy starts crying out of pure misery, screaming that the taste is unbelievably bitter. The woman gives him some head scratches, totally feeling his pain, but reminds him he still has to finish the whole thing. Chewing with serious struggle, the MC wonders if this is some sort of payback for trying to run away earlier. Getting jealous of the phoenix snacking on seeds, he begs for just a little bit of that normal food. After the torture finally ends, the candy is handed over while the caretaker praises his hard work. Licking the apple, the little guy cries tears of joy, feeling the sugar wash all that gnarly taste right out of his mouth. Watching the peaceful scene, the host stays quiet, giving the divine bird a gentle hug. She breathes a sigh of relief, realizing she had been totally stressed out, worried she had misjudged the kid's limits. Playing with the baby, the guardian silently cheers that the ritual went down without any major hiccups. Changing the subject, she claps excitedly, dropping the news that they'll be having a visitor very soon. The little one stops eating right then and there, totally curious about who this guest could be. Petting him, Christina points out that the ritual's success might cause a bit of unnecessary drama in the outside world. That red-haired kid who showed up earlier goes by the name Ferdikian, the future head honcho of the Red Dragon clan. In the bedroom, the MC lets out a confused little chirp when a glowing blue screen suddenly pops up right in front of him. Skimming through the guest's full details on the panel, he quickly figures out that this must be the power he got from the ritual. Noticing the hatchling zoning out, the woman guesses that the magic must have manifested in some visual way for him. The ex-dragon thinks the interface is pretty user-friendly and decides to poke around to see what else it can do. Suddenly, his stomach growls incredibly loud, and the host points out that he must be starving after burning through all that energy. With a quick spell, she summons a massive mountain of baby bottles, letting him know she prepped way more than just one. Chugging it all down like a champ, the starving guy celebrates the fact that getting this magical inheritance was the greatest thing ever. Seeing the little guy's crazy appetite, Christina thinks maybe it's a bit too early for the next step. But the caretaker quickly changes her mind, suggesting it's about time they pick out a permanent name for him. The hatchling is caught off guard, remembering that names act as a trigger for dragon communication magic. He admits to being pretty attached to his old name, but worries it might sound way too weird in this brand new life. Just then, a memory flashes by, showing a guy in a hat deciding to call him Lee Muck because of his dark scales. The old man used to explain that even a lesser creature could turn into a majestic dragon after 1,000 years of cultivation. Petting him, the man was rooting for the little critter to one day rule the entire world. Snapping back to the present, the MC feels bummed that he can't remember the old guy's face anymore, but he makes a promise to keep going by Lee Muck. The woman pets him gently, telling him there's no rush and to take his sweet time thinking it over. She finds the crystal-clear quality of his telepathy totally fascinating, while he just feels grateful to finally be able to talk. Christina praises the kid's genius-level adaptability, totally clueless that he can hear literally every single thought going through her head. Staring down the phoenix, the ex-warrior decides he'll soon need to come up with a name for his annoying little sidekick, too. Out of nowhere, a strong burst of magical energy pulses, announcing that someone just pulled up to the castle. The host glances to the side, calmly letting him know their guest is right on schedule. She stands up gracefully, stating she's heading down to the main hall to welcome Ferdikian. The caretaker invites the hatchling to tag along and he jumps at the chance, eager to check out this prodigy kid. The little guy plans to use the redhead as a benchmark to figure out the normal power level for babies in this world. Hyped up, the guardian scoops the ex-dragon into her arms and dashes forward, whipping up a portal of light. On the way there, the MC uses his new skill to skim through some intel about this new world. He pulls up his own host status window and is totally floored to see she's thousands of years old. The stats reveal she's an absolute powerhouse of a leader who stepped into the human world and pulled off some massively heavy duties during the war. Mind blown by the data, he admits that this sweet, caring woman carries some intimidatingly heavy titles. Stepping through the portal, Christina walks up to the red-haired visitor who is patiently hanging out in the hall. The MC stares down the kid in front of him, locking eyes on the exact target he wanted to analyze. Checking out the kid's confident walk, he confirms this is definitely the famous heir to the red bloodline. Keeping his manners flawless, the prodigy offers a polite bow, mentioning it's been a minute since they last saw each other. With a cool and collected vibe, the young guy greets the golden leader in a super formal and respectful way. Right after that, the redhead turns his attention to the hatchling, asking if that's the newborn of darkness. The woman confirms it like a proud mom, bragging that the baby might be young, but he's ridiculously smart and special. The red heir leans in to call the little guy, who responds in the most adorable way possible just to keep up his cover. The visitor gently holds the little, claiming he's super eager to get to know him better. But out of nowhere, the kid's face goes dark, flashing a totally cold and empty vibe. The young guy yanks his hand back in a flash, snapping right back into his polite stance like nothing even happened. The ex-warrior narrows his eyes, highly suspicious, trying to figure out what that creepy vibe was all about. Staring at the smiling kid, the hatchling wonders if that heavy pressure was straight-up hostile intent. He notices the redhead hid that shadowy aura almost instantly so he wouldn't get busted. The tiny dragon finds the whole thing super sketchy, especially since the prodigy has literally zero reason to hate him this early in the game. The prodigy thinks to himself that anyone watching would assume he just met his absolute worst enemy. The baby feels incredibly lucky that he isn't just your average hatchling, but suddenly feels something squirming on top of his head. Right then, the bird's little white wings start flapping like crazy. The tiny critter shifts around super excitedly, making a total racket and drawing all the attention. Then the phoenix lets out an ear-piercing chirp, while glowing bright as day right on the little guy's head. The sound bounces around the room, leaving the visitor staring at the whole scene in pure confusion. Ferdikian mutters under his breath, asking what in the world that cute little bird-like thing is. The MC catches the comment and mentally questions what kind of bird could possibly look that weird. Christina smiles, admitting that looks can be deceiving, and explains that it's actually a baby phoenix. The kid is shocked, remembering that the previous generation of this legendary bird is actually still around. He admits he's never seen anything like it, guessing that the creature's true power hasn't even woken up yet. The Guardian nods and suggests they just watch for now, pointing out how the bird has finally settled down. She affectionately ruffles Ferdikian's hair, thanking him for making such a long trip to see them. The young guy shyly nods while the leader tells him to be a good big brother. Watching all this unfold from the sidelines, the tiny dragon decides the visitor is really just a needy kid craving attention. Even so, the MC is still seriously bugged by that incredibly dangerous glare from earlier. The image of that insane hostility is still completely burned into the hatchling's brain. Staring down the kid, the ex-warrior decides he needs to test him just to be absolutely sure. Without missing a beat, the baby leaps straight at the visitor, catching everyone in the room off guard. The little guy lands right on Ferdikian's face, mentally stating he just wants to see how he reacts. He knows that to anyone else it just looks like playtime, but his real goal is to see if he can tick the kid off. The young guy freezes up and stammers, asking what on earth the hatchling thinks he's doing. But instead of getting mad, his face turns tomato red from pure embarrassment. The MC is totally clueless, realizing this reaction is the exact opposite of what he was expecting. Trying to double-check his theory, the baby decides to run one more quick test. The red heir's eyes go wide as he gets another massive jump scare. Annoyed, the visitor shoves the little critter away kind of roughly, asking what's gotten into him. But with lightning-fast reflexes, Ferdikian catches the hatchling super carefully so he doesn't hit the floor. The host rushes over, asking nervously if they're both alright. The ex-dragon watches the prodigy, while the woman apologizes for the youngest one acting so hyper. Looking worried, Ferdikian asks if the hatchling got hurt, totally surprising the little guy with this sudden protective streak. The MC silently gives thanks for being caught so safely. The kid plops down on the floor, still holding the baby, trying to shake off that mini panic attack. Completely flustered, he tells the leader to just drop it while looking away with a grumpy pout. The little guy finds it hilarious how the young kid tries to play it cool right after showing so much care. He figures that the initial hostility was just a big misunderstanding from someone who has zero clue how to handle his feelings. After all, the kid is still way too young to process all these emotions like a grown-up. The hatchling mentally advises that he shouldn't go around trying to pull a tough guy face on just anybody. Fake coughing to hide his awkwardness, the visitor points out that the woman seems really happy. He quickly follows up by saying she must be thrilled to have someone so tiny running around the castle. Christina agrees with a smile and reminds Ferdikian that he used to be that tiny once, too. The heir saying he can't even picture that since it was so long ago. The caretaker agrees that time flies, but swears she remembers every little detail perfectly. With a super warm look, she admits she holds on to those memories with a whole lot of love. The woman casually drops the fact that the prodigy was an incredibly sweet kid back when he was just a baby. Hearing that, the young guy gets insanely embarrassed and completely loses his train of thought. Right then, the MC feels a super annoying and familiar sensation bubbling up inside him again. A loud rumble comes from his belly, signaling that his magic energy is totally tanking once more. The host catches on to the little guy's hunger instantly and says she's gonna grab him a snack from the kitchen. The baby groans, well aware that this is just the pesky side effect of running out of mana. He cries out, totally outraged that he's starving again right after chugging all those bottles. Meanwhile, Christina suggests the two of them play together and casually floats right out of the hall. Before vanishing, she drops one last warning, telling them not to wreck the place. The kid instantly glares at the little guy the second the woman is out of sight. The MC freaks out a bit, thinking all that shyness from before was just a top-tier acting job. Without missing a beat, the visitor snatches the hatchling up firmly and lifts him right to eye level. He starts squishing the little critter's cheeks, announcing that he's the one calling the shots from now on. The ex-warrior tries to wiggle free, mentally demanding the brat to let him go already. Stepping up for her buddy, the phoenix swoops in fast at Ferdikian's hand to get him to back off. The prodigy doesn't even flinch and sternly warns that he won't go easy on him just because he's younger. The tiny dragon is totally lost on what exactly this arrogant kid is trying to teach him. Ferdikian keeps acting tough, demanding the newbie leave everything entirely up to him. Overflowing with confidence, the young guy flashes a smug grin, acting like he totally owns the place. But the legendary bird gets ticked off by his nerve and starts blasting out some seriously intense, fiery energy. Covered in flames, the phoenix glares at the red air, making it crystal clear she's not putting up with his attitude. The kid orders the bird not to get sassy in front of the future boss of the Fire Clan. Showing off what he's made of, Ferdikian unleashes a massive, terrifying aura of flames all over the hall. The MC spots instantly that the visitor is actually holding back a huge chunk of his truly dangerous energy. But the prodigy gets a massive shock when he sees the tiny bird hasn't backed down a single inch from the pressure. The phoenix holds her aggressive stance, proves he's got absolute mastery over that element too. The hatchling smirks with pride, noticing his flying buddy doesn't get rattled by threats easily. Wasting zero time, the ex-dragon jumps right in front of the bird, mentally declaring that this is his loyal sidekick and he's protecting her.